Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday. I sure hope we're coming in loud and clear. I got you with me, Michelle. What's up?
Yeah, hopefully no glitches this week. It was bad last week.
I don't know. I was just chatting with people, and I think we might have opened in a different thing. So apologies, guys. I hope you guys realize where we are, and we'll see what happens. That's really all I can do.
Because you set the scheduled one, so we're
Yep.
not on the scheduled one.
And I told it to go to the scheduled one, but
Scheduled one? No.
oh, yeah, I think it's working right. It's just I needed to refresh it. Okay, good, good. Yay, it's working.
Yay.
so, so, what's up with these energies? I mean, gosh, you guys, we're like at a point right now where you can focus on all the chaos and it feel like everything's falling apart. Much like, kind of going into a renovation. You can go into an old building that they're renovating and tearing walls out and they're going to go back in and put new support beams in and all this, but it will look like a disaster zone for a while, right? And I really
Hmm.
feel like that's what I feel like in my energy is that don't focus too much on the debris. Realize how much things need to be cleaned out and cleared away to make room for new things. And that's definitely happening. I feel that momentum. Do you feel that too?
Yeah, well, I talked about that last week that I really felt that energy of the purging and making room and like clearing out the debris. I think is, you know, it's a good visual example. I see the similarities there with that taking down these old structures that are rotted and no longer serve and clearing that all away, but it's really being done within ourselves. But some of that process isn't very comfortable and can be pretty messy, so
Yeah, and I want to say it was probably, I don't know if it goes with the full moon, and something I gotten in meditation about how the moon reflects back a lot of the energy. The same way it reflects light, it can reflect back energy. So a lot of what we put out, if we can put out a lot of positive energy, that's actually reflecting and shining back down during the full moon. So that was one thing, and that can counter some of the negative things because there's people that know that and use it just the opposite way, right? So there's different
yeah.
colors, shades of light that can be reflected. So think of it like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, the more white light you pour in there, the more it washes away the colored or distorted light, though, doesn't it? So another thing to think about. But with my own stuff, I've really been getting like, if I get too much into the ego, you know how we play out. I've talked about this before. Where you are thinking about a conversation that might take place, and it might get a little nasty, and it might go wrong. And what would I say if this happened? And like really feeling this almost anxiety attack feel of discord come over me, like why are you thinking about this? Why are you manifesting that right now? Almost like, an alarm clock. The alarm bell's going off saying, you're out of harmony right now. You need to step in. And most of the time, like I said, it's just my mind thinking of something, what to
Yeah.
say or a conversation that may never take place, things that may never be said, or things that could go wrong that might never go wrong, right? So we do this, we kind of stay just in the future a little bit. And I really feel like for a lot of us, we're like processing, transmuting a lot of the collective energy. And I've been feeling like my guides are like, you don't have time to bog down your system with this personal stuff that you know better than to sit there and think about this. We need this collective energy transmuted, alchemized, and all this, and I
It's
really feel
time to
like
be
that.
more responsible.
Really, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we're the only ones. We're the sovereign beings in charge of our own thoughts and what we observe and pay attention to and put energy into. And nobody can do that but us. We can get
Yeah.
help. You can ask for help.
Yeah, and you can't control what other people are focusing on or thinking you do. You can only do you. And as soon as you start to get distracted by even thinking that you should be or can be or concerned with, what other people, what state they're in, then you're getting lost yourself. So
Right.
yeah, you gotta keep bringing it back home.
Right.
Hmm.
So it's
And
making me wonder
the
if the moon.
agitation is really there to feel it when you're not in that zone.
Right. And being aware that it is an external thing does help because if you're already sort of agitated with your own stuff and then
Mm.
that gets added to it, then you feel like you're just way agitated about your own stuff. But maybe, if you're not in an agitated state and have no
Hmm.
reason to be agitated, and you can really tell that it's an external collective thing, I think. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, yeah, really, like, I mean, some days we can, skip through problems and, take them in stride and sort of sidestep and say, okay, and just kind of go with it. And then, other times and other days we can just, feel like this knee jerk reaction that we almost don't have control of in response to, this minor situations can just be like,
Right.
that's it. And it really is perspective. But I think these energies and influences, they really, then they can take a toll on us too. It's important to be aware of that and aware when you're feeling, like that's not coming from you. Like there's no legitimate reason for you to be in
Mm-hmm.
that state. So I really noticed that with the full moon
Mm-hmm.
in Aries, and with Mars, and just very agitated, no patience, and having that knee jerk reaction. But then it also leaves you very, ugh, don't like the agitation inside. We've talked about it over the last few months of feeling that wubba wubba
Right, right.
of energy, sort of that. And when it's harmonized, it just has a nice vibration to it.
Yeah.
But when you start getting pulled outside of yourself, all of a sudden it's just becomes very, can leave you out of breath feeling, can feel almost, more, I don't want to say the palpitations, because sometimes the palpitations are just the energy coming, like so much just
Right.
moving through you. But it just feels like nervous, anxious, icky, like you just can't shake it, extra tension and all that. And it plays out in the mind. So
But the
I
conscious
really
breathing
noticed it.
does works wonders with the
Yeah, I
sigh.
just mean,
You know.
yeah, I have a game plan, just like somebody who's quitting smoking. You got to have go-tos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that, okay, when this happens, or I get a craving, then this is what I do. This is my strategy to
Mm-hmm.
deal with it, right? So it's just that immediate recognition and addressing it with your chosen strategies that work for you, and making sure that that's the top priority.
That actually
Um,
came to me in meditation. It's so, and I had forgotten about it. I think I mentioned it on the love
no,
stream, but
Zoe.
just because I could tell like your higher self just triggered me to remember it or whatever. But I was being shown in meditation just personally, when your schedule's changed up, maybe you can overindulge in food or smoking or drinking or whatever. Because, the statistics, I was looking at the statistic, they were saying how everything was up. Everybody was, just enjoying the time off because a lot of people are still, it's not back to work as usual or whatever. So a lot of that, say you're already a smoker, but maybe you're smoking like a whole pack a day and maybe you're smoking a half pack. To take those times, if you are in that boat with any kind of craving, maybe it's chocolate cake for you or whatever, to take that time and not every time, but some of those times to swap it out for a conscious breath. So maybe you're wanting a cigarette and you just had one, you're like, you know what, I'll just take a conscious breath this time and really center or whatever your trigger is. But to use some of these things that normally work against us, these sort of 3D habits, as notifications to the higher realm and the conscious breathing and connecting to the divine.
Mm.
So that was shown to me to begin to use the things we think of as negatives or crutches or like, I forgot how you worded it, but just things we go to, our go-to things
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and it doesn't have to be, anytime, but it's just choosing when to take a moment to have a higher level of control, making conscious choices, and not just be like automatically at the whim of your impulses,
Yeah.
right? But making sort of a conscious breath or choice,
Mm-hmm.
in each moment. And if you, it's not like it's right or wrong to make either choice in
Mm-hmm.
either direction. It's more about just the assertion of your own will, or so no, I'm going to claim that in this moment, and actually feeling that and sticking to it and
Right.
experiencing that, instead of being pulled by the cravings, or the what the body wants,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is a good exercise for that. Doesn't mean we have to go all out regimented.
Right.
Mhm.
Just to
Just
use it as a
awareness.
reminder, a friendly reminder,
Hmm.
and do it whenever you want. Sometimes, maybe you can't get to your chocolate cake or something,
Yeah.
so it'll
And if
help
you're going to
anyway.
eat chocolate cake, then don't cure guilt.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're finding bliss in your chocolate cake, by all means.
Yeah. If you're choosing to eat the chocolate cake and know that you're going to feel guilty afterwards and then eating it anyways, and then there's where you're stuck.
All right.
It's not the eating of the chocolate cake.
Yeah, it's the guilt that's
Yeah.
most discordant, if you would. Right. So, okay. So this was weird, and it'd tie in, it'd be a great segue into the dreams, talking about dreams and stuff, because
Hmm.
um, I was going somewhere today, and the radio talked about the SpaceX launch yesterday, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's what those string of lights I saw last night. And I'm thinking, like, there was like a little trail of lights, and then it dawned on me, like, I didn't see a trail of lights last night. What am I remembering, right? So it was like, for a brief moment, I thought I remember it last night, seeing this. So then I'm like, did I dream it? Why do I remember that so clearly? It doesn't feel like a dream at all, though. Do you know what I mean? It feels like last night's memory, but
Exactly.
I know if that had actually happened, I would have tried to grab my phone and maybe snap a shot of it, or I would have told my family when I got back home, hey, guess what I saw? This sort of thing didn't happen. It didn't happen in reality last night. But in my mind, when I
It
heard that
happened.
today, I remembered this specific memory and seeing the trail, and then even thinking, oh, that must have been what I was seeing. So I saw
Yes.
something. So what's going on with this
I've been
confusion?
experiencing that for increasingly over the last few months, like since over the summer. I've
Hmm.
been really noticing that and noticing the difference in how my dreams come to me. I've mentioned it a bit in that I noticed a change as opposed to just waking up and remember like these whole sequences of dreams.
Hmm.
I keep experiencing moments throughout the day where something triggers a memory, and it's like going back and remembering something I did the day before or the night, whatever. But
Hmm.
then all of a sudden I realized, no, give my head a shake. Hold on a second. Did I actually do that? No, that was actually a dream. And but it's a memory recall that's experienced it's just the same as a memory recall of something I actually did, and it comes back to me in that experience, like that's how I'm recalling it, like something I
Yeah,
did yesterday. And
absolutely.
it takes me a moment to be like, well, did I
Right,
like hold on a second, but I couldn't have, because
right.
and I actually have to calculate it.
Yeah,
Like when you can't remember what day it is when you get up in the morning and
right,
you're having to place, well, if that happened then that was
right,
Monday, then
right,
this must be right.
right.
And so I'm experiencing that very often, like increasingly over the last few months. And that's what I felt. It's like my dreams are just coming back in these waves of memories of things like I've actually experienced them. And they seem like a not a like a I would say normal daily activity, because I mean there was something special about what you saw, very similar to like what you said, like seeing something. I think I've had stuff like that where I thought I saw something
Right.
in the sky, and then I'm like, oh no, that was just a dream. um
But the thing is with this, okay, so we're talking about realizing whether or not something actually happened. This in this particular story of mine, it's cool enough that I know that it didn't happen. But a lot of times it might be having a conversation with someone just about, maybe something that's not so out of this world, right? So
no, just
because of
ordinary
that,
stuff.
you can't, there's no way to really remember, like that. I know that it didn't happen last night when I really think about it. But with
Yeah.
conversation, sometimes it's like, dude, did that conversation really happen? Or it
Yes.
could have, but, there's nothing
Yeah,
about
like
it.
I talked to somebody
Really, the
but
only
then
way
I
to
never
know is
actually
to
talked
ask
to
them.
them.
Did I talk to you about blah blah blah? And I'm like, yeah
Yeah,
or no, and then you'll know. But
that's
it gets
happening a
crazy.
lot. I think we're
Yeah,
really like bopping around these timelines. But
is it future memory as we hear about too? I mean, is that something that
yes,
I?
That's what I'm thinking. I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, with having this experience. I feel like I'm jumping ahead in dream time into a
Hmm.
timeline and going through a scenario and experiencing it and then coming back and be like, that's done.
Right.
Like I did that, so it's already done.
Right. Yeah, in
And
your example, you had actually in your sleep you had went
yeah.
to get a phone and decided to go get the iPad, and then like really thought about which one you wanted. But when you woke up, you cut all that out and you just went for the iPad because you
Well,
had
when I
already.
woke up, I didn't have the money. Like I didn't have the money for it.
Oh, you didn't have the money yet.
No, I didn't have the money for that or to even make that decision. But once I had the dream, it was done.
Right.
It was done. There was no question in my mind. I woke up that morning and I'm like, I guess I'm getting an iPad. Not knowing how I'm getting an iPad, not having the money for it. And within less than three, I think it was 2 days. Within 2 days,
You were
I
actually
had my
going in
answer.
and buying one.
I got a big chunk of money that I wasn't expecting, right? I'm good again for another. It's like God keeps telling me, it's like every time, it sort of gets down to like, okay, am I going to have to go do something about this? Or it's like, no, okay, all right, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing then. So I just keep going with that. But it was really, I knew it was done. I knew without a doubt. There was no surprise.
Right.
And then it was just like following through it. Just yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm experiencing reality more and more and more and more like that all the time, with each year, but it's pretty consistent. I mean, there's so many stories. I know I've shared with you some, privately, and but so many different experiences that just show the power of dreams telling us the things that can be like there's abundance in there.
Right.
It's been brought to me and my mom like several times now, and I can see when it's coming in, and it's like, okay, just allow it to happen. I don't have to struggle. I don't have to worry. I don't have to do things in the way that I thought I had to do them before to survive and to live. There's a manifestation power that is eager to provide for you if you just allow it to do it in its timing and the way that it's meant to, not the way you're trying to control it to happen. Like you really just kind of, can kind of put that request and let it go. You don't need it. It can, it's like that would be nice. That
Right.
would be a cool experience.
Hmm.
And then you just let it out and you don't grasp it, you don't control it, you don't stifle it, you just let it breathe and then see how it responds to you, see how it answers you. And the messages will come there, in your dreams and in your synchronistic experiences, like you're talking about possible travel and the song, taking the train, midnight train, and different synchronicities can pop up in all these different ways that speak to us, or like mom, when mom woke up, well, I guess I'm going to the casino today. Apparently I don't really want to, but I guess that's what I'm doing,
Right.
from a dream. Like, and like you'd never predict these things happening the way that they do. Could
What if it's
never.
just more like a dream? All of it's more like a dream than we realize.
Or dream weavers.
Yeah,
Dream weavers.
exactly. It's
I'll
just
tell you about my dream then too. I had a cool dream, so I can share that one. And I think it really kind of ties in with this statement of like, what is real? What
right.
is real? And so it was a levitation dream again, and I've heard this theme before from other people having this same kind of experience in dream. And I was in a room in a house, and there's some similarities to my room now, but also some differences to it. But in the dream state, I didn't know. It just felt like home, right? But very clear this room, and it had angled ceilings like my room does. And I was in the room, and all of a sudden I realized that I was able to levitate, and I actually pulled my legs up into like a sitting position, like
Hmm.
lotus, and just kind of hovering above the floor. And I'm looking around me and everything is so real and so clear. The sun coming in through the windows. I'm like, this is real. I'm like, this is really, really happening. It's really happening. And I'm like, Mom. But I'm like calling her, but trying not to like go too much out of my vibe, holding my sort of Zen levitation pose and wanting to keep it so Mom could come in and see, like,
Right,
to
right.
have her see that. And so I hear her coming. I guess it's like an alcove to this door, and I float over just with this excitement of like, wait till she gets a load of me. Wait till she sees this. Like, it's really happening. And I float over there, and she comes through the door, and she's got this laundry basket, and she's kind of holding it in front of her, and she's not really seeing her because I'm kind of like where I'm floating, because she's holding the laundry basket. She can't see that my legs aren't on the ground.
Right.
She just, and I'm like, Mom, and I'm trying to get her to look at me. But she's kind of frustrated and distracted with this laundry basket. And here I am in her way, look, floating, right? She doesn't realize. And she's trying to push past me with this laundry basket. So I'm just kind of laughing, waiting for her to
Realize.
realize or have it dawn on her what's actually going on. So I levitate and I back up, like allowing her to come into this room. And she's like, she comes in with a basket, and I'm like, she puts it down, like, oh. And I'm like, Mama, she's like, yeah, I know. My back's just really sore right now. She's like, my back's just really sore. And I'm like, yes, but look. And she sits down finally, is finally looking at me. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, Mom, am I awake? Am I awake, Mom? Is this real? Is this real? And I'm looking around. Oh, too, and before, I'll just say, before she sat down, just before this, when I was bopping around the room, I was actually testing my environment. Um, like, I'm awake, like I'm really awake, because look, I can bang my head on the ceiling, like the angled ceiling, and it makes a sound, and I can hear it. I can hear it, and I can feel it.
Right.
Like, I was actually doing that, testing my environment. And then anyway, she comes in and sits down, and I'm like, look, and I'm like, I'm doing this and levitating up and down. I'm like, do you see? Do you see it? Do you see this? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, am I awake? Is this real? Like, I'm awake, right? This is real. This is really happening right now. And then she starts to not respond, like freeze. And then that's when
Oh no.
I'm like, how can this not be real? I'm looking around my environment and how clear everything is and how much I feel everything. And I am stunned by the dawning realization that this is just a dream, that I'm actually not awake, but my environment is so real. And how can this not be real?
Right.
And then it fades, and I come awake. Now, there's an interesting difference, because I find usually with my levitation dreams and when I go lucid, what, like, for the last, I don't know, year or two, at least, um as soon as one of the ways I test my dream environment to see if I'm actually dreaming or not is by levitating. So it's like, when something would start to happen, I'm like, oh, hold on a second here. um I can immediately go, okay, well, if it's a dream, I can levitate. And I go, whoop, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm dreaming. Now I can go do whatever I want, kind of thing. So there's an interesting difference with that, is that I started off in this dream, sort of coming to in this experience of, um, it was very much like, it's really here. Like, it's really happening. You're actually experiencing this. Um, this change has occurred, and you are real time levitating now, and it's a real experience. And So I mean, that was, yeah, it was very it was very interesting.
So you need to
And
find a new
interesting
totem, is what you're
differences.
saying.
What's that?
A new totem, the thing to determine whether you're asleep or not. It can't be levitating anymore because pretty soon you're really going to be levitating and that won't be a good, you know. So I guess in
Well,
Inception, they had the little thing he would spin, and if it just kept spinning on forever and ever, he knew he was dreaming. A totem, I think they called them.
Mom had an interesting way. I shared it with mom, and she had a very interesting point. Is what to remember, and I think I'll be able to recall this. Is that she's like, yeah, but when we're awake, we don't actually ever question if we're dreaming. When do you actually, when you're awake, do you ever go, is this a dream? We don't.
We're supposed to, actually, right? That's
I
supposed
don't
to be a
know.
way
Or
that,
maybe that's it. But that I like so I'm wondering, I'm like, oh, okay. So that kind of I
or
was like,
something
yeah,
really horrible
that's
happens. Yeah, like a,
yeah. So I don't know if that's something that will trigger me in the state, again, if coming up again, where it's like if I can recall, if I can do a conscious recall on the fact that, okay, if you're having to question your environment, if you're having to question whether or not it's real or not, then it's not. I don't know.
what about
Or the
really,
dream's
really, I said horrible things, but really good things, you'll question if you're dreaming, your 16th birthday, there's a car sitting in the driveway. There's probably that moment of wondering if you're dreaming, right? And if we're
no,
having these
yeah,
magical things happen all the time,
yeah.
it might be difficult at some
It's
point. Because
no,
I've
but
had so many magical
really
things.
seriously, where you really seriously have to
No,
question it.
okay, so even
Yeah.
today, even there was a moment where I just couldn't believe what happened, and we'll get into the synchronicity. Of course, people that have been with us a while will know that we've had lives as brother and sister, probably many lives together. So we've got
Hmm.
this brotherly, sisterly sibling connection, if you will.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like one morning, a song came on that my actual sister in this life and I would do duet. It was "Endless Love," and I'd heard it that morning, and it reminded me of being a kid with my sister. And I sent her like a little text saying that we should do this after all these years. We should re-record this together, like a little karaoke thing. It'd be kind of cool or whatever.
Hmm.
So that, like later that day, I think it was later that day. I know it was like within that
Yeah. No,
week.
it was that day. It was that day.
Okay, so I
Yeah.
get on with you, and like you've got this book, and you like randomly choose a song that I don't know speaks to you or whatever, and then like you'll play it for me that week. Like this is what I'm
Yeah.
working on this week. She was playing "Endless Love," and I'm like, wait, that's what's the chances of that, right? So you got those have those moments where something's so extremely synchronistic that you question it, and I did it again today. So overprotected Sherry. Her son put out this touching little video about how much he loved his mom and all this, and I'm like watching it, and I was like, I was telling her how I saw it, and it was touching, and it reminded me of the last song I played for my mom when she was in hospice care at her sister's house. I went over there and sat down at the piano and began to sing "You Are So Beautiful," and it got a little mushy and too touching, so I kind of started sounding like Joe Cocker and making it more funny towards the end because I was more about making my mom laugh than cry, and so then I get on today. Like this was, I think, on the weekend that I had sent that to Sherry and told her that, and I get on with Michelle today, and out of all the billions of songs you could sing, you play "You Are So Beautiful" right back to me, and I felt like it was my mom from the other side, like responding to me thinking of that memory and like reliving it for a moment because you do go back
Hmm.
there, and then it
Hmm.
was like kind of like her letting me know I was there with you, and I just we experienced that together again, and I'm singing it, playing it back to you now. So as you played it today, I'm like, I was so tripped out by it that I should have been bawling. Normally I would be crying by it, but I was like, because
It wouldn't be
she's
the first
playing.
time I made you cry playing music.
No, it wouldn't be. No, but this was
Yeah.
I was in such disbelief as I listened to it. I'm like, is this "You Are So Beautiful"? Because you're playing like all the different parts. I'm like, this is, and my mind kept telling me it can't be "You Are So Beautiful." It's got to be something that just sounds like it. And so, and I'm like, no, this is definitely it. And then I could feel my mom's presence and like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and I've been, that kind of gets into
Do it again.
the better connection I feel like I've had with my guides and my team, and gosh, it
Hmm.
just feels like this constant connection. It almost reminds me of how I felt as a child, and when I would almost feel like Jesus was always with me and stuff, at a very young age, and like I was never alone, and that sense of having that connection always there. And we're kind of told like, that's your imaginary friend or whatever, and you need to grow up and stop doing all that. But I've been actually getting more like, and then I think of how Jesus actually says that, to be more like a child, and it really is
Yes.
that childlike faith that at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's the peace
Well, I
that
really like
passes.
that because you said the timing too, because it was on Saturday when I couldn't get the song out of my head. It started playing in my head like randomly, that song "You Are So Beautiful," right? And and I do, and I'll pick a song to like practice before we talk on Tuesday to play something for you, right? Not every week that I choose something. Sometimes I'll replay older stuff, right? Because then I go back and pre-practice, but I couldn't get that song out of my head. I knew I had to learn it to play for you on Tuesday, and I looked it up to see if I had it. And like I have this my big book of 150 songs, right? This, and I just so happened it had that song.
What? I mean,
Yeah,
150 songs sounds
had
like
it
a lot, but
so it wasn't that I was like it was playing in my head on the Saturday. I couldn't get it out, and I totally did think of you. I was like, okay, I gotta learn this one to play for Shane on Tuesday, and sure enough, it was in the book. So I just started practicing it just from the weekend. So it's not like super great, but yeah, I've been practicing it and playing it since then. So it's been in my head. But we get that a lot with songs, eh? We'll get the same, like we had the sail and sailing
yeah,
and
yeah,
a lot of. So I kind of really tune into that because it's not the first time. I know when there's a song that I'm being called to learn, like for you on
right.
like on the Tuesday. Like I just get this overwhelming feeling of like this will get you in the feels.
Wow, that's
Right,
true
like
too.
this will hit a button or something
Yeah,
about this, like that 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 really is it's meant for you, that it will really mean something or feel something to you, like this will be good for Shane.
it's
I
so
really do
magical
feel
though.
that, and it pushes. It's great, like look how much it's like pushed me to play and practice every week
Yeah,
by having you like listen, and I get excited to share something new. And a lot of times I do know that it will. Sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes I've like turned around and you're like crying. I'm like, oh my gosh,
yeah, because it's so mind
right?
blowing.
Other times I
Yeah,
just know, like, I'll turn around and you'll have that smile on your face, and I'm like, I knew it.
that one,
So
gosh, that one,
great.
I can't believe, if you would have asked me, I would have totally been like, oh my gosh, I'll be bawling my head off because of how, I was a mama's boy and I love my mom so much. And
Yeah.
even when I thought about that, I couldn't think too deeply about it, or it kind of made me sad the other day, but I kind of quickly got to the laughing part and, of the whole thing.
Mhm.
And, so yeah, it was like I was such in shock when you were playing it that I was in such disbelief, and it's so magical when those synchronicities happen at that level of. I mean, think of all the things that had to line up just so perfectly that none of us were doing any of it on purpose. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it really is listening too, like because I listened to inside of me.
Hmm.
I listened to the song playing. I listened to the intuition and compulsion to look it up,
Hmm.
and the intuition and compulsion to learn it, and that it would hit a chord, like the way I get, like it hits a string literally harmonically, like inside of you, and both of us timing wise, I think it's important. It's a sharing
Hmm.
of harmonics. I,
Yeah.
I think it's so healthy, and I think it really does something
It really is a
energetic,
confirmation of the
physically.
connection we all have through the group, because you see these all the time, synchronicities that just run through everyone. I mean, it could be people that like are still in the light worker community and you don't really know them, and they'll be talking about something that you saw in a completely different way, but it's still sort of the same underlying message that's
Mhm.
coming
Well, it's
through at
amazing
times.
the universe can use songs to communicate to us, really.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they come in and they play in our experience, like, Nathan, my mom, likes to do too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know lots of people do. It's a great tool to, sort of asking a question and playing a song. But then they'll also, we literally have a radio kind of in our head where you'll wake up or you'll get a song in a dream.
Yeah.
And that song can mean something at a different time,
To a
to a
different
different
person.
person in a different, reflecting the light in a different angle through their perspective in that moment that illuminates what it needs to for them in that time, so
Or it's
and then
like you don't
take that.
know. A lot of times you'll get a message and you're not really quite sure of it. And I always say, I mean, you can think of it like, well, this could go 3 different ways or 10 different ways. But you could tell it's a synchronicity and it's a message, but you're not really sure what it's telling you. And I always say, just set it on the shelf for now and wait for the next little clue that's gonna kind of begin to build this case of what it's trying to tell you. You don't have to like jump
Yeah,
to
sometimes I feel
conclusions.
like you don't have to take the whole song and pick like everything apart. Sometimes if it's not like an instantaneous thing, it's
Mm-hmm.
because you're not supposed to take that whole message. You're right. You put it on the shelf. There's a key word, there's a key symbol, there's a
Right.
key phrase. That's just an element of that thing. It's not the whole thing unpacked. And what will happen is you'll get those other packages come in sort of synchronistically, other little bundles or nuggets of information again, where then you'll see the common ties. You'll
Mm-hmm.
see the theme come up and get repeated.
Right.
You know,
Because we've seen that before where it's not necessarily the song title. It might be the album art or the album title or a bumper
mm-hmm.
sticker. It could be really anything. It's like, don't
Yeah.
close yourself off to information. Because Gladys Knight and the Pips came on in my head this morning. Now, this song would have never, this is like my parents',
Mm-hmm.
era of music. And the Midnight Train to Georgia, I got their, I got that song playing in my head. I got her name. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like so clearly out of all the songs that never would have come up. You know what I mean? It was like I said, I would probably overheard my parents listening to it or heard it on the radio or something.
Mm-hmm.
So just yesterday I was talking to my sister who lives in Georgia about us coming and visiting her. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's about that. But then there's a deeper meaning because, I've had the connection with Michael Jackson playing music and with him, and then she's like discovered him. So I don't know. So I put it out there and see what's happening. I was really pleasantly surprised to see she's actually still touring and doing her music after all these years. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's still touring.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm getting that, in your dream time, you had that conversation with your sister, and then you go into dream time and basically you're going into a prep mode in your timelines
right,
of
right,
creating a timeline,
right.
a train, like a track,
Yeah,
a timeline track for that experience. And the song was just kind of an affirmation of you building this timeline track for an experience that you want to have.
right,
Yeah, it's kind of like build it and they will come. And we
right.
do that in our sleep. That's
Hmm.
what we're doing. I think we don't realize how much we are.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the music playing, pay attention to that because, like you were saying, you got the sail song, I got the sailing song, and it was like, it's still the same word. You know what I mean? Completely different song, same kind of idea though. And that had
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of little nuggets in the video that could be unpacked too.
Mm-hmm.
I had another song come through that on the bridge of it, it said, "We're all right, and it's all right, and it's all right." And I'm like looking at the video, and they're all wearing masks, like face masks. Yet this video came out in 2016, right? And they were just happened to be in like this band happened to be like in Japan on in tour, and they were already wearing masks back then. But in that
Mm-hmm.
very moment, it's like telling me it's all right. This current moment we're in right now, it looked like it was from right now. You know what I mean? Even though it was
Right.
because they were wearing the masks, but
Prepping.
but they were singing "It's All Right." And like, don't worry about it. So
Yeah, yeah.
those messages are
I'm sure they
constantly
were.
messages are constantly coming through that
Yeah, get used to it. It's all right. Wear your mask.
Well, I just like, how no matter how crazy it's looking,
Take, you know what,
it's all right.
you take what you want from it. We have a choice in every experience to take energetically what we want out of the message that they're putting out, right?
All right.
So it's good to recognize in your sovereignty that, that's an intention, recognizing intention energetically for what it is,
Yeah.
and in normal, and they're, creating the normalization of, covering the face and the mask and trying to tell you it's okay,
All right.
but it's kind of being aware, but we don't, that awareness it separates us. In each sovereign moment we can choose
All
what
right.
we take from something and what we leave behind,
It gets
what
back into
stories we carry.
the wheat and the
Yeah.
tares that I talked about.
Yeah.
They're all there together, and what are you gonna pluck out? What are you gonna focus on? So,
What are you going to keep and carry with you? Yeah, what stories are you going to keep and hold, because it's always a choice. Mm-hmm.
message music by the OJ's. What song was it, Cammy? She she just tuned in, and we were talking about music again. So in our playlist today, synchronicity. Yeah. So the music is an awesome way, and just sometimes it's just a few words. But I've even had it like where you're flipping through the channels and you like build a little sentence on accident. So you like go to one, it's like an ad, and like they'll say today only, and then like you'll go to the next one, and then like it'll be another ad or a commercial, and then they'll say something else. Experience the best, and then it's like, and then you're like, are you kidding me? You're like,
Games you can play.
right. It's almost
Yeah.
like one of those ghost boxes, but you're doing, you're flipping through looking for some music, and then, or it might end on a line being sang or something. But yeah, if you just pay attention and you're really in the moment, I'm finding that there's this constant stream of magical stuff happening. We just don't pay attention.
Yeah,
It goes right
it's,
over our heads.
it's like there's information going across the screen all the time that we were not reading before.
Right.
That just like it's a constant connecting of these dots. It's this whole pattern overlay that you just didn't even consider as being part of how reality works. You thought it was just a fluke,
Right. Right.
right? But it's not. The more you realize they're not, the more you decode it, the more it's everything. It weaves through everything. Every sentence thing we look, you can find it.
That's funny. Cammy said the song is "Message in Our Music" is the name of it. "Message in Our Music" from the album by the same title. Interesting. Wow. The OJ's. That's probably like a Motown stuff, right? Yeah, that's weird. Motown stuff's coming back through. Yeah.
Hmm.
I was looking at what's her name, Gladys Knight, and I was like, oh my gosh, she kind of looks like Kelly Rowland when she was younger, a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Be a good candidate for one of those reincarnation, except for they're both alive, but some of those look-alike ones are pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Was there anything else with dreams? I guess we're. Oh, I did want to. I guess I talked about that constant connection, but just pay attention. It's always there. I'm always getting stuff, and the more I've tried to disprove it, the more it's proven to me that it's there. You know what I mean? So I'd say to anybody, test it out, you guys. All right. I don't have anything else. Do you?
I think it's good. Covered a
Where
bunch of stuff. Unless anybody.
Yeah, we're at 45 minutes. I'm looking. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, yep. Sometimes from people themselves, or I want to sing. I've walked by somebody having a conversation, and you just catch a little snippet that seems like it's for you. So yeah, it's like it gets really crazy and magical. Definitely. Awesome.
It's around us all the time.
Mm-hmm. But we're not in the now. We're not in the present moment enough to see it. That's really.
That's got a lot to do with it because you're
Yeah.
distracted mentally, right?
I mean, like, how would I have seen that if I
Present.
was reading a text on my phone or something at that moment? I would have totally missed it.
Well, when we're really present in that moment of an experience of coming across a bit of information that has a resonance to it, your body physically reacts. You get the goosebumps. You get that, like you'll get a lot of physical sensations with it. But if you're mentally, distracted or whatever, you won't notice that as much. But there's real moments, I think, where you'll come across a bit of information, and when you're present, you receive it. You're like, you really feel that shift, the
Oh
shift of
yeah.
knowledge entering, your system, and this awareness, right?
And the
So,
connection there too. A lot of
mm,
times it's accompanied by, this extreme feeling of love and peace. And when you realize that there's no way that just all came to my head in that moment. And you realize when you get like an epiphany or a download, because all of a sudden this whole block of information makes sense. So
it
it's a,
unpacks in a completely different way
right.
than sort of your mental construct of trying to control concepts and put them together.
Hmm.
Than the way it works in a completely different way. So the more you get familiar with that, the more you realize when that kind of information is coming in, and you just kind of sit back and observe.
Hmm.
You're not mentally deconstructing and picking it apart and analyzing it. You're literally sitting back in like a movie seat, watching as it just goes, okay, and then there's this, and you see that visually. Well, that goes with that, and like
And
my
that's what you're
mind's
describing
not
right now. What you're
what's that.
describing right now is like almost exactly. I've been reading Tesla's stuff, and it's almost exactly how he got his stuff. It sounds like we talked about he was from Venus. The FBI papers that were released talks about
Mhm.
how he was from Venus and how they gave him the information. And if he was just doing what we're beginning to be capable of doing now, he was just a little bit more advanced in that area. You could totally see that this is a direct connection with that. And maybe that's why this is coming out with Tesla now, to make us realize that that intuition is very powerful, and that connection can get good enough that you can actually invent things. And
Mhm.
if everybody's got this connection all of a sudden, which we all do, we're just trying to figure it out, right? Then how can you possibly suppress information at that point? You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like anybody can make anything that they've kept hidden all this time, because it's the information's there to, for
Yeah.
those who can access it.
Well,
So,
it really allows for like this thinking outside of the box. Like that's how we do it, because the box is literally that box, right? That our minds like being put in, that we can't seem to step outside of our preconceived notion of how everything works.
right.
That's the box that we can't step outside of. So by setting that aside and just letting it go, you're able to make connections and put things together that you never would have done on yourself in your own box of your mind. But the more time you do that, the more you spend doing it, the more you realize also very physical sensations and reactions. It's not just it's not just a matter of having a bunch of images pop in your head. There's some real energetic things that are going on as well. The sensations in the crown. I get a lot of pressure right here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Feels like there's a magnet, literally, like right on the forehead. So there's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
That when the energy comes in, we talked about sort of that feeling like pouring down energetically over the head. Feels
Mm-hmm.
like something
Yeah.
pouring in, and in a lot of ways it's really like this information, this new knowledge is like pouring into us and decoding and unraveling all these old structures and clearing out this new train of thought. It's getting rid of the box, getting rid of the box, so everything that we can do will be outside of the box.
It's interesting because probably more times than not, when I sit down to meditate in a quiet place and close my eyes, like within like a few seconds, I feel that wash over me, like you're talking about. Just I feel
Yes.
covered with chills. What I would typically term to be filled with the Holy Spirit back in my old church days. That sort of feeling, you know, and
Yeah, it's
it's
like
amazing.
humps. I like vibrate. You know what? Here's a symptom too. I don't know if I mentioned it. I don't think
Hmm.
I did last week. My forehead's actually vibrating
Mm.
now.
I
When it
think I've
comes, like
had
I'll
that
just be
before.
sitting there minding my own business, and then, or I've woken up. I'll wake up a lot, and my forehead's vibrating,
Hmm.
and I actually feel like almost even the tip of my nose too.
Right.
Uh, yeah, it's a very real sensation, and then it'll also come in. I'll just be minding my own business, and like
crazy.
I putting my hand on there to like to actually see like if
But
I
it's
can
not
what I
vibrating. Just
feel, but it's just such a weird sensation.
right. It almost
So
feels like a muscle spasm vibration or something, right?
feels like
Except your muscle isn't spazzing, but it feels kind of like that.
it feels like the skin's starting to go kind of numb if you've been like having it pressed on something that's vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
If you've
Right.
had your like foot
Like when
pressed
you,
down on something that's vibrating, for a
right,
really long time, and it almost starts to go numb
right,
because it almost feels like that weird nummy
right.
feeling, and this vibration, this yeah, you know. So that's and it just kind of comes in on its own. A lot of times when I wake up now, but other times it just kind of sweeps in. It doesn't necessarily happen with meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's more just kind of this random weird thing that's just kind of come in lately. So just
Right.
another symptom that's been pretty actually strong over the last couple of weeks that I've really noticed.
Very
Mm-hmm.
cool. Very cool. All
Awesome.
right. Well, if you guys can chat, it looks like people aren't finding the thing, so we'll probably have a lot of people watching on playback. So please do leave a comment, you guys. Let us know what kind of symptoms you're having. I will check them and we'll discuss next week. Thank you, Michelle, for being here.
Love you, bro. Love you guys.
Love you. Love you guys.
Thanks so much.
See you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Be sure to check out the website at uotf.net. There you will find the live stream schedule displayed in your local time right there on the front page. Below that, you'll find links to take the Beyond Quantum Healing course at a discounted rate, purchase our book, Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe, in paperback or ebook, or to contact me to schedule a BQH session. At the top of the site, you'll find links to help support the work I do, access the free private forum where you can discuss organizing get-togethers in your area, Mandela effects, and more. Thank you all so much for being here.